Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle D'Souza Gill, and I'll be hosting Dinesh's podcast while he is away in Australia this week doing a grand tour with Tucker Carlson. If you follow Dinesh on social media, you'll have to check out the photos of the two of them on stage. They're pretty great. If you're a regular Dinesh D'Souza listener, then you've probably heard me on here before, substituting for him. I was here last week. I'm the author of two books, The Choice, The Abortion Divide in America, and Why God, an Intelligent Discussion on the Relevance of Faith. I'm a mom to my daughter Marigold, and I help my husband Brandon in his campaign for Congress, where we live in North Texas. I always love coming on here to guest host, and it's such an honor to be here. But the best way you can stay in touch with me is to find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, all the places. That's where you can find my content, videos, all those things. All right, well, we have a lot of news to get to today. We are going to be talking about some of the evils the left is pushing, like the website OnlyFans. We'll be talking about the prospect of a female draft. That's right, and we will be talking about Biden's new White House Associate Communications Director. We will also talk about Planned Parenthood and where they are putting their money this cycle. You may have seen the photos, and that really says it all. I'm not sure what else needs to be said. But later this week, we'll be talking about the CNN presidential debate, so make sure you stay with us today and all week. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
It's an immutable law of nature that every minute you spend doing something is also a minute you can't spend doing everything else. Life is an endless series of choices, and those choices determine who you are. And it's nice that we live in a world where we have so many choices. A greater number of choices means we have more freedom. Just a few years ago, for example, the option to work from home was nowhere near as common as it is today. This is one of the many new choices made possible by the internet. You can also enlist the aid of internet tutors to help homeschool or help with tutoring or help some kind of additional help with homework. You can even sell handcrafted napkin holders to people across the planet using the internet, and you can find all kinds of things on there. It's great that we have so many choices nowadays. It's great that the internet has opened up our lives to new possibilities. Yet choices do not exist in a vacuum. Choices are always paired with their twin, consequences. Spend all day tending to your farm, and you end up with a harvest which you can eat or sell or do both. You'll be richer, stronger, and healthier. And people will respect your work ethic. Spend all day drinking, you end up poorer, sicker, and less respectable. Choices and consequences. You can clearly see from these examples that a big choice in life, one that will truly shape you as a person, is how you choose to earn your living. It's important to remember, however, that there's a lot more to who we are as people than simply our investment of time and how much money we got out of it. Don't get me wrong, time is very important. When we invest our time, we are basically expending our youth. None of us are getting any younger. But sometimes when we work, we invest more than that. There's a soul element. We may choose a life of crime, for example. This may make us money, but is it good? A life where the stakes are high, but the payout could be massive amounts of money. If you're a really effective criminal, you might even earn the fear and respect of others. Most people don't choose that path because a life of crime also necessitates a trade-off beyond one's youth, where you may have consequences. Criminal pursuits require you to check your purity at the door. And purity is the kind of intangible quality that's very different from youth. You can go your entire life and basically try to do the right thing. Purity doesn't necessarily fade like youth does. But it's the kind of thing that you can lose at any time. That's why most people don't do crime, and they don't want to sell themselves for money. They want to retain an element of their own dignity and have an inherent understanding that there's a line one shouldn't cross. But with new pathways being opened up through the internet, it appears that there's a big lag between when we are presented with these new choices and how long it takes us to understand the sorts of trade-offs that they entail. I'm talking about the controversial website OnlyFans in this example. Though not specifically oriented towards what one would call the sex trade, it has become one of the more popular ways for young and attractive people to make big bucks relatively quick by selling their bodies online. The left claims the site serves as an entrepreneurial platform that allows for virtual interactions between a service provider, whether they're a music teacher or a stripper. Customer users, the eponymous fans, are able to instantly send payments as part of a reward system. As of June 2023, the site boasted 210 million users and 2.1 million content creators. The average content creator has 21 subscribers and earns about $150 a month, with top creators raking in over $100,000 a month. Naturally, the top ranks of OnlyFans creators is rife with striptease artists and adult film stars. When OnlyFans first rose to the fore, it was praised for its potential to empower sex workers to strike out on their own and cut out the middleman. As a result, you can make millions selling your body online. One key difference is that OnlyFans does not condone or promote actual sex, it says. The site is notoriously draconian about the sale of any kind of in-person services because it doesn't want to be held liable for violating prostitution laws. Nonetheless, all the sex acts done on the site are still forms of prostitution, albeit virtual. But it turns out that's the only thing that's virtual about the transaction. When you use OnlyFans to earn money or spend money, you're earning and spending real money. And you do not get that in exchange. The cost is still on your soul. That seems to be the confusing thing for some OnlyFans creators. Some labored under the delusion that a simple webcam show was somehow a gray area and something that maybe wouldn't affect them that much. It's not actual prostitution, nor is it traditional pornography, so the hope was that creators wouldn't have to deal with the same kind of stigma that older forms of sex work entail. It turns out, however, that how you are stigmatized isn't really up to the online sex worker as much as it is up to the men in her life. A while back, the UK-based podcast of Lotus Eaters did a segment on a young woman who left her profession as an airline stewardess to work on OnlyFans. She boasted a monthly salary of roughly $20,000 in US money, which was far above what she was making before. Unfortunately, this person soon discovered that men didn't want to date her once they found out what she did for a living. This is no surprise. The podcast host points out that while women control access to sex, it's men who control access to relationships. He also points out that no one would spend money to wine and dine her if he can have full visual access to her with a few bucks and an OnlyFans account. Though direct, it's a succinct summation of what that creator actually exchanged and lost when she chose to earn money selling her body. Jordan Peterson pointed out that an intrinsic part of a woman's worth is not how she sells herself online, but the extent to which she is able to protect herself from exploitation. Once you are in that situation, that really becomes the challenge. And it's really not that much different than an in-person interaction. Yet another OnlyFans star also expressed frustration in her dating life. In September 2022, the New York Post ran an article about British OnlyFans model Fenella Fox, who complained she hadn't had sex in 5 years because her idea of purity was waiting until the third date and not a single man remained interested. Fox felt it wasn't fair and that she was being unjustly stereotyped as easy just because she sells her body online. The sad thing is, many people do think that that is easy. In the article, Fox said that she wasn't interested in marriage or children, just the sort of casual sex that comes from a minimally committed relationship. But she claims, "I don't like one-night stands. Men don't seem to have the patience to get to know me." Fox is being a bit slow on the uptake. She understands that there's a stigma associated with the fact that she broadcasts herself into thousands of men's bedrooms every day, but for some reason, the answer isn't to find a more respectable way to make a living or to stop doing this, Actually, what these OnlyFans models are discovering in their dating life is what people like her are doing to single women everywhere. Because internet pornography is ubiquitous, men who watch it no longer need to date to have access, at least visually, to any number of attractive females. That means when it comes to forming lasting flesh and blood in-person relationships, women everywhere are in direct competition with their virtual counterparts. People like Fenella Fox. That means these OnlyFans models are also losing to themselves as virtual competitors in the dating market. It's the kind of ironic situation of just desserts that would almost be satisfying to watch if it weren't so sad and decimating the relationships for young people. How many women in the millennial and Gen Z generations are going to discover too late that they wasted their youth on OnlyFans and their innocence engaged in meaningless and anonymous interactions? Something tells me that even a big pile of money will be cold comfort when they reach their end, unmarried state. When they're older, when they're alone, when they're having squandered away their whole life and all of these chances to meet someone. Will people wake up to the fact that working on OnlyFans is no more respectable than any other form of sexual exploitation? One good sign that this might be happening is that OnlyFans' top-earning creator, a woman named Angela White, who went by the username Black China, left the site after making an estimated $20 million. But last year, she got baptized, removed her plastic surgery implants, and walked away from a highly lucrative OnlyFans career, which she said was degrading. As to why she left, she said, "That's not what God wants me to do." She added, "Now I'm just going by faith. I'm not even really going by the Black China way or the Angela way. Let me just let God lead me." It's a small light of hope, and hopefully this is what happens to every woman on OnlyFans. Let's pray that generations of men and women turn away from OnlyFans, stop using it to make money, and stop using it in order to give money.
You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way they used to. They've been part of this cancel culture, and so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. Now, when Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company, just the pillow, but with the help of his dedicated employees, Mike now has hundreds of products, some of which you may not even know about. So to get the word out, I want to invite my viewers and listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. 6-pack towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, $25. And for the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, just $25. By the way, orders over $75 get free shipping as well. The amazing offer won't last long, so act now. Call 800-876-0227. The number again, 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. Make sure to use the promo code. It's DINESH, Dinesh. The hardest part about weight loss? Getting started. But once you get started, you'll be so happy you did. Are you ready to lose weight but not sure where to start? I understand. Debbie and I were right where you are a year and a half ago. Let me tell you why we chose PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition and why I so highly recommend their program. First, Dr. Ashley Lucas has her PhD in chronic disease and sports nutrition. Her program is based on years of research. It's science-based. Second, the PhD program starts with nutrition, but it's so much more. They know that 90% of permanent change comes from the mind, and they work on eliminating the reason you gain this weight in the first place. There are no shortcuts, no pills, no injections, just solid science-based nutrition and behavior change. And finally, probably most important, it works. I lost 27 pounds, Debbie lost 25. We haven't gained the weight back. The best thing about this program, they have an 85% success rate of their clients maintaining their weight loss for life. They provide elevated maintenance support for you through the PhD alumni community, which will give you the support you need to keep this weight loss off forever. So if you're ready to lose weight for the last time, call 864-644-1900 to get started. You can also go online at myphdweightloss.com. do what we did, do what hundreds of my listeners and viewers have done. Call today. It's 864-644-1900. We recently had some monumental news, not good news, but no one's talking about it. For the first time in our history, the interest we pay on the national debt surpassed every individual budget item except Social Security. That's right. The U.S. now spends more on interest than on national defense or even Medicare. And it's only getting worse as big government continues to spend like drunken sailors. This is why savvy investors, central banks, concerned savers are turning to gold, something that is not tied to the inflated U.S. dollar. You can too with the help of Birch Gold. For over 20 years, Birch Gold Group has helped thousands of Americans protect their savings by converting an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. To learn more, text Dinesh to 989898. Claim your free information kit on gold. No obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned my trust with their education-first approach, their thousands of happy customers, and their countless 5-star reviews, which is why I buy my gold from Birch Gold. Protect your savings. Text Dinesh to 989898 today.
I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Terry Schilling. He is the president of the American Principles Project, which fights to protect families and kids. Terry, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to first start out by asking you to tell me what inspired you to want to fight to protect kids. What made you want to step in to advocate for parents? Because so many people around the country, they're parents, they have kids, yet somehow they can, maybe they're just really busy, but they get tunnel vision and they don't know what's happening with their kids sometimes. They send them off to school and all of this, wokeness is going on, these crazy things. And so what made you decide to kind of step up to the plate and do something different?
Well, first and foremost, the attacks against our families and our children have never been higher. Right? Where parents are having to defend their children on all these different cultural fronts, and especially as it pertains to our schools. Our schools are failing our kids, not just in terms of indoctrinating them, but I think a lot of people are shocked when I tell them that almost 2/3 of our kids across the country, according to the National Assessment for Educational Progress, 2/3 of our kids are illiterate. They can't read at grade level. They can't do math at grade level. Our government schools are failing our kids, and then on top of not teaching them how to read and write and do math, they're indoctrinating them into hating America, into gender confusion, into weird sexual ideologies that I'm, frankly, as a 37-year-old man, very uncomfortable talking about a lot of times. And no one was filling that gap. No one was starting a super PAC, right, to punish the politicians that were implementing this and passing these laws and policies. And that's what that was the main motivating factor. But also, Danielle, I had a great childhood. I am the eldest of 10 kids. I grew up in America that was fantastic. You could ride your bikes out in the open and not worry about crime or drugs or getting murdered. We don't live in that type of country today, right? It's the threats are all around us. They're physical, they're psychological, they're political, they're ideological, but most of all, they're spiritual. And you look at what's happened to our country and the state of families, and it's gotten so bad that young people don't even want to get married today. They don't even want to have kids themselves. And that's a really big problem. It says that there's a lack of hope in the future of this country. Our kids are our future. Our families are our future. They're the bedrock. It's not just some cliche saying that we've heard time and time again. It actually is the truth. And that's why the enemies of America are spending all of their time trying to attack our children and our families. And so those two things, I had a great childhood. I'm so grateful for that. But I want to get back to that, but I see all these threats to our kids and our parents and our families, and it's overwhelming at times.
Yeah. You mentioned being able to ride your bike, being able to not be affected by all of these, crazy, horrible things out there. And I think what's something random but crazy I read was that I think in the Midwest, it was saying that it used to be that babies were rarely born to mothers who are addicted to drugs. And recently they've had to create these entire new facilities, all because I think every 20 minutes or something like that, a baby is born to someone who's addicted to drugs. And of course, 100% pro-life, but ideally we want to try to make it so people aren't addicted to drugs and we don't have, kids growing up in environments where they then become the parent in that situation where that's just kind of becoming the norm. I mean, I hate to say it, but so many cities have been hollowed out. So many places in the country have been affected by something like drugs that you mentioned, but also just all of this indoctrination, all of this wokeness. It's all really spreading to the point where even if you just want your kid to grow up as a normal person, you have to put in 10 times as much effort and fight even harder to make sure that happens. So what is kind of one of your main messages to parents out there? Is it to avoid, certain areas? Is it to homeschool? Is it to unplug from technology? What are some things that parents can do to at least kind of create a semblance of normalcy?
Well, generally, my biggest piece of advice to parents is to go on offense. Do not play defense. Get your kids out of government schools. It might be cheaper right now in terms of money, but the only thing more expensive than sending your kids to a Christian or private school or homeschooling them is having illiterate children who hate you and hate their country and hate their God that created them. So you got to go on offense. You have to have these very difficult and sometimes awkward conversations with your children about all of the crazy stuff that they could be learning or hearing about in school or from their friends, right? I've had to talk to my 8-year-old about gender confusion, right? That's an awkward conversation, but it's an easy one if you just put yourself in the mind of a child, which is easier and easier to do when you have so many kids like I do. But you've got to go on offense. You've got to step out of your comfort zone, have the awkward conversations, argue with them, debate with them, make sure that they know that you're way smarter than their government teacher at a minimum. These are, I had a wake-up call a few years ago at a parent-teacher conference with my eldest daughter. I asked the teacher basic questions about what math curriculum and what literature curriculum. She had no clue. She just, talked round and round. And I realized, this is a 23-year-old girl. She has no clue how to raise children or what children need. And so you just got to go on offense and have those awkward conversations, take your kids out of government schools, whatever it takes, and fight for them and vote the right way, right? I think a lot of people think that they can vote however they want or that the government doesn't affect us. It does affect us. Government, in a lot of ways, is upstream of the culture. And, when they make something legal or illegal, that changes our society and our culture in major ways.
That's so true. You mentioned the illiteracy issue a couple times. How do you think it got so bad to this point where America, it seems like we used to be one of the places that had some of the best education, and then that quickly took a downturn, and now it's like kids are learning either nothing in school, it's basically like a daycare center, or they're being taught to hate their country, hate God, as you mentioned. So how did it get to that point, and when do you feel like that really began?
Well, I think it began in the 1970s. There was a huge shift in terms of America's economy, where it slowly became necessary for two parents, for two incomes to come into the household in order just to, provide for a house and clothing and shelter. In the 1970s, before all this got to where it is now, people, they could support a family off of one income, which meant that you had a full-time parent, whether it was a mom or a dad, who could focus on the school boards, who could run for school board, who could, focus and get involved in the local civic society organizations, like the Rotary Club, like the sports leagues, like the library. There were parents who had an investment, like their children, in the future, and making sure that we weren't cutting things and getting short-sighted on that. You fast forward today, as more parents withdrew from our community organizations and getting involved in the school boards, the teachers unions all took over. They started pumping millions and millions of dollars all across the country to take over the school boards. So now you have a situation where the school boards, which were set up and founded to hold schools and teachers and principals accountable to the local community, now those are run by the people who are not being held accountable. They're run by the teachers unions. They're run by the principals. And so now you have no real check or balance. They literally are now investigating parents as domestic terrorists from the Department of Justice and the FBI simply for making their voices heard at school board meetings. It's preposterous. It's not just preposterous, it's evil. And it all happened, I think, because America's economy started going down the tubes and we stopped focusing on prosperity, right? Prosperity is not more people working. Prosperity is people working fewer hours for more money, for more opportunities. That's real prosperity, and we need to start looking at how to get back to them.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think it reminds me of that before, a lot of these inventions before, let's say, the birth control pill or, of course, abortion and all these other things, life was difficult in, let's say, the 1800s, for example. But I don't think a lot of people's solution was to say, okay, let's just, completely get rid of the family. Let's just have both mom and dad working, because what would happen to the kids? What would happen to the schools and stuff? And so I think that there was maybe that time, maybe in the 1950s, where we were experiencing some kind of prosperity post World War II. But as soon as the 1960s hit and these other options, so to speak, became available, it almost seems like no matter how much you change the standard of living, it's almost never enough, because you always think, well, we could always tap into this other person's income, even if it takes away from the kids, And I think a lot of people don't realize, life is so long. And so there's actually a lot of time for women to get involved in school boards and all of these things. But I think that sometimes people think, oh, well, is this my only option to have both people maxing out on their income? But I think a lot of data has shown that actually single family households, ones where the father works, they actually end up earning more money than they otherwise would have if they were married to someone who was also working. So I think that could come from the fact that perhaps they have a more stable home. Perhaps they feel like, when they come home, they can focus on the kids, focus on being with them, as opposed to when you have both people juggling crazy schedules, it can be hard to kind of actually focus on work.
No, that's exactly right. And I'll tell you, so I'm the eldest of 10 kids, which I know to most people sounds weird, but it's the only thing I know, and it was a great life I had. My dad and we started pizza restaurants. What my mom said to me just a few years ago, she realized that she was going through that time of life where she can't have any more kids, and she was going through like a mini depression. She's like, I really liked having kids. I'm like, Mom, you maxed it out. Like, don't worry. Like, you didn't leave anything on the field. But she said, but now I realize that a lot of women today have it backwards. They put their career first during the years where they can actually have children, and then they can't have children once they decide they want to. Whereas now I maxed out my fertility, I maxed out my ability to have children, and now I can go get a college degree. I can start the coffee shop I always wanted to start. And it's like women can have everything, they just can't have it all at once, right? And that's like pretty common sense. That applies to men too. We can't do everything. Especially all at once. We just got to get back to priorities, and time matters, right? When you're young is when you should be having kids. And that might be uncomfortable for some people to hear, but you have a lot more energy when you're younger. You're a lot more fertile, and you're developing skills as a mom. You're developing skills as a dad. You learn how to deal with adversity at a minimum, right? When your 2-year-old gets into Vaseline at 9:00 at night, you have to figure out how to get that out. And so you deal with these challenging situations, and you're grateful for them. Not in the moment, maybe, but you have these memories that you're creating. But you're developing skill sets as a parent, and I'll tell you what, I've hired and employed a lot of people in my life, and I would hire a mother of a large family before I hire any young person with any advanced degree.
That's good that's actually good to know, because you do gain so much wisdom and you learn so many soft skills you wouldn't otherwise learn. And I think a lot of older people who I've talked to who say like, oh, I want to have kids now, it's almost like they're trying to force it into their existing schedule, into their life, and they want everything to go a certain way. But I think when you're a younger person, you can like be more flexible and realize, oh, this is the way family life is. And even if you fast forward to grandparents, just decades later, I think that the grandparents who don't have that many grandkids, or because they didn't have many kids, they kind of miss out on a lot of things because they want to be with them all the time. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if you only have one or maybe two, you're probably not going to be with them all the time if their parents are looking after them. So I think a lot of grandparents love having like 20 grandkids, and so I'm sure your mom is going to have a lot of grandkids and lots of laughter and love around her, always at Christmas and all those things. But I wanted to get your reaction to a couple news stories, because I definitely could talk about this all day. So, okay, I want to get your reaction to spending from Planned Parenthood. So Planned Parenthood has said that they are going to be spending $40 million to support Joe Biden. Now, I know that they tried to pretend in the past that they're not all about abortion. They used to claim, oh no, we're for women's health care and we offer all of these other services and all these other things. But the reality is they actually are pretty much solely focused on abortion. I think this quote from Jenny Lawson, Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Votes, says, "Abortion will be the message of this election, and it will be how we energize voters. It will enable us to win." So I think Planned Parenthood is pretty much just an abortion clinic and clearly just funding Joe Biden. So what do you think is going to be the play out in terms of, is this election going to be all about abortion? Are we kind of seeing the true colors behind these groups? We saw them, but sometimes, middle of the road people might have thought, oh, I'll just go to Planned Parenthood and get a screening or something. I don't know why you would do that, but, let's just say that now kind of their true colors are out and they are really focused purely on abortion.
Well, it's unfortunate that Planned Parenthood even exists in America, right? And I will say that this is a great reason to defund them entirely, right? If you're going to spend $40 million in campaigns and elections to get Democrats elected, it's really upsetting to me that Republicans don't have the cojones to completely defund them. Right. Democrats would never, if there was a equivalent on the right of a crisis pregnancy center that gives resources and helps women choose their babies and choose life, and they started spending $40 million a year, or heck, even $1 million a year electing Republicans, you can be sure that the Democrats would completely defund them and probably actually use the Department of Justice to go after them. In fact, we're actually seeing the FBI put 75-year-old ladies in prison for 2 years. For 2 years for protesting at an abortion clinic in Washington, D.C., where 5 babies were found in a dumpster. Right? That's not proper protocol at all. I don't think we should have any dead babies in this country. But if you're going to be killing babies, maybe you should cremate them or bury them and not just throw them in the dumpster. But I'm getting away from the point. The point is that Planned Parenthood views babies as a problem. They think that babies are pollution, that they hinder our freedom and our ability. And in some ways, they do hinder our freedom, but they make the world a better place, right? When you're trying to eliminate babies, why don't you go further? Why don't you eliminate puppies? Right? I mean, the world is better with more flowers, with more puppies, and with more babies. That's just the reality. And when you have a group that's so anti-humanity that they want to wipe out the best of humanity, right? I know a lot of adults who are horrific human beings that instill a lot of pain in the world. I would never call for their elimination, but these are babies. Babies are beautiful. They're the future. And when you're eliminating babies, you're eliminating the future. And so I hope to everything that's above us, to God, that this election is about abortion, but it's about how there's one political party in this country that is dedicated to eradicating babies from the world. And if we can make it about that and just how violent and evil Planned Parenthood and the Democratic Party are, we will have a good time and we'll get President Trump elected.
Yeah, definitely. When you mentioned the puppies, it made me think of the Christy Nome's story with shooting her dog, which of course is maybe not ideal, but also at the same time, I'm like, this is completely different. This is a dog, and everyone freaked out. Yet when it comes to human beings, to babies, they are like, whatever. It's horrible. Okay, I want to get your reaction to this. White House promotes Biden official who compared police to slave patrols, wants to abolish ICE. Of course, this person is, I don't know, some kind of drag queen, trans person, and this person is now in a leadership role. I saw an interesting video recently about how, for some reason, these drag people, they only want to read to kids. Like, why don't they want to read to old people? They, for some reason, never do. I don't know. Those are just two random thoughts, but maybe you just want to get your reaction to why is Biden trying to make this, I guess, central to his White House. It seems like this is an election year. It doesn't seem smart, but at the same time, this is what the Democrats stand for. So I guess this is central to their ideology, their view of sex, of gender. To us, it's crazy. But how do you read that?
Well, first and foremost, in order to understand where Democrats are on issues of human sexuality, you have to understand what progressives want with human sexuality, which is complete and total liberation. You and I would not view this as liberation. You and I would actually view this as sexual slavery. These people are not free. It's like someone that's doing heroin or crack. It's claiming to be free to do crack and heroin. You're not free after a certain point. These people are actually slaves to their sexual desires, to where they're posting pictures of themselves that are repulsive, right? And I think the reality is that we have an administration, an executive branch that is repulsive. When you see the pictures, and this isn't just the only guy in the White House that has photos like this. There are several others, and they're all in high-ranking positions. There was the guy, the drag guy that was into puppy play and like stealing women's bags of clothing and then wearing them around. He was head of nuclear waste in this country, right? And getting rid of that. But the thing is, these are repulsive people. And if you aren't repulsed by them, then the odds are likely that you are a repulsive person. These pictures are so disgusting, and they make you sick if you're a decent human being. If you're just a normal human being, you don't even have to be that good. You see these pictures of these people that are in high-ranking positions. Imagine this in the Bush White House. Right? Imagine this in the first Trump administration. Imagine this even in the Obama administration. These guys are trying to shift the Overton window to where we can't discern or decipher between repulsive and good. And that is the reality, is that these are repulsive people that are putting repulsive people in positions of high authority. And this guy is a communications director. Right? He's a communications director in charge of the messaging coming out of the White House. And these are the messages that he's proclaiming online for the entire world to see. So what do you think is going to happen with the Biden administration when they're not ashamed? When guys like this are in positions of power, they're not ashamed to post this online. So what do you think they're going to do with the direction of this country if they get the chance to change it? They're going to make everyone like this. They're going to make this stuff more normal. We can't accept it.
Right. It reminds me of that person who went to one of the White House parties who was like topless, but it was a man with fake boobs or something. Anyways, it's gone completely out of control. And I think people really just only have to see the pictures to really see what it is. I mean, I feel like there's not really much more I can even say because it's so disturbing. But wanted to get your reaction to the concept of the military draft for women. This is something that the Senate has been putting out there. I've seen Josh Hawley come out against it. He says that women signing up for the draft is insane. But there are other Republicans who have supported it. It seems like this is kind of an offshoot of, well, if you want to be a feminist, if you want women to be like men, then you got to deal with the draft. I've heard some kind of conservatives go in that direction, or libertarians, I guess. And then others of us who are social conservatives say, no, there's completely a difference between the genders. This is completely wrong. So what's kind of your reaction to this? And where do you think most conservatives fall on this issue?
Well, I think that we've made a lot of progress for women over the past, century or so. But the reality is, I think we're going backwards now. Right? We should not be making women equal to men. We should be actually making them better than men. We should be venerating women. We should be protecting them. We should be making sure that we have a military that is strong enough to where we don't need to send our daughters to the front lines to die in battle. Right. And if the only way you can get away with this, with putting women on the front lines and getting them into the military to go die overseas, is you have to lower the readiness standards for our troops. Right. You have to lower the physical requirements and the physical testing requirements. You have to actually lower your military readiness standards in order to allow women to be drafted and go to the front lines. This is somewhat related to the women's sports issue, right? The same reason why we don't want boys who claim to be girls competing against girls because they have an unfair athletic advantage. It's the same reason why we don't want to send our women and daughters into battle. It's because you want the fiercest fighting force of all time that will kill the bad guys, right? And the other thing I'll just say is that women, in terms of your society, are actually a lot more valuable than the men are. And I'll explain that, because women determine how fast you can refill your population. So you can have 1 million guys get killed in battle, and you can repopulate that very quickly with just a few guys, a few very lucky guys. But if you kill 1 million women, you are severely limited. And these are young women, right, that will be going to battle. These are not old women. And look, it's fine for women to sign up for military service, but they've got to pass the same strenuous physical standard testing that we do, that the men have to qualify for. I've got 3 daughters, so this issue really gets me riled up. You're not drafting them. You're not taking them into battle. I'd rather leave this country. I'd rather live in Canada than, and that's saying a lot, because I really can't stand Canada. But if they start drafting my daughters, there's a lot that it would take for me to move my family out of this country. But if you start drafting my daughters into some garbage conflict or any conflict, really, I'm gonna leave the country. You're not taking my daughters. They're not going to die for your stupid wars, and so that Boeing can have their profits increase. It's just not going to happen. And I don't think I'm alone by that. Any girl dad out there will tell you the same darn thing: is you're not drafting our daughters. We would rather die than let you kill our daughters. We're willing to take a bullet for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that any conservative would even advocate for this is just like, you are just worthless. I was talking to someone who has that view, and this person was saying, well, the women can just do like intelligence stuff. There are other things in the military, and so they don't have to be fighting, so it's fine. So that justifies it, even though they'll be in the military anyways. I'm like, well, that doesn't really solve the issue. That's kind of sidestepping it, and you're still drafting them so where they can't, as you were saying, they can't have kids, they can't be taking care of the home. What happens to the kids if both people are gone? I don't really know. I guess go to some government center or something, or who knows? It's like communism. But
let them join, right? Let them join. The problem with the draft is that it's coercive. Right?
Yeah.
Women should be free. If you want to join, you want to get in an intelligence position, fine, please, we welcome you. Do it. My great grandmother served in World War II in intelligence at Freeman Field in Ohio, assembling planes and doing all that. I love it. It was great. I'm here because she met my grandfather during that time. But don't coerce them. Right? They wanted to serve. Let the women that want to serve, but but forcing them to take the place of other men. This is the thing. You draft women into the front lines and into combat, there are going to be men that stay home and don't get drafted because of that. That's not right. It's not okay. And I think there will be a lot of upset people. And any so-called Republican or conservative that tries to claim that this is about fairness and equality, like, we got to take you out. Like, you're so low IQ that you're going to destroy the country, and we have to get rid of you. We have to unelect you from public office. That's how dangerous you are to the future of this country.
Yeah, seriously. It reminds me of Titanic, when the guy, I forget his name, but the bad one, where he's like trying to escape, and so he like pretends like he's holding the crying child. So they're like, okay, we'll let you off with the women and children, and then he's just like doing whatever he wants and abandons them. It's like, yeah, it's awful. But last question. I saw Taylor Swift was doing a concert and she had her whole audience, which is usually a lot of women, especially younger kind of teen girls. And she was telling them to all yell, F the patriarchy and things like that. And it just made me think, wow, I mean, if what you're saying is true, where we don't want women forcibly drafted, of course, but if then they're here because then they're going to be indoctrinated by Taylor Swift, or they're still going to be, I guess, saying things like F the patriarchy. It's like we have so much cultural work to do in making sure that that kind of stuff has no influence. Like, look, I understand people listen to music, but at the same time, I mean, the messaging sent by so much of these cultural icons today, it's so harmful to women, especially.
No, look, I hate all this hatred for the so-called patriarchy. There's a lot of things that you're not very grateful for if you're saying F the patriarchy. You're not grateful for all the men that went and fought the Nazis and died, right? That saved the world from that. Every major world war where we stopped tyranny was fought for, and lots of men died for that. That was the patriarchy. I'm very clear, like, if women want to become mechanics, or they want to shovel crap, or they want to be trash men, or they want to go and fight in wars, please, go sign up and die on a battlefield and let your life be, not around anymore, I guess. But the reality is that the patriarchy was all about men serving women, and men have always been willing to do very dangerous jobs, very unappealing jobs that make you smell and that are tough and physically straining. We were doing that for women. We were elevating women in our society. That's the reality. And if you want to reject the patriarchy, that's fine, but you got to be ready and prepared to accept what follows, which is a lot more women dying in battle, a lot more women having to work jobs that they really shouldn't have to work. And it's going to lead to a lot of men withdrawing from the system and not wanting to serve women. I actually had an argument with a guy 2 weeks ago when this whole women in the draft thing came up, who was forcefully arguing, no, if women are going to be equal in the law, they got to get drafted. I disagree, right? I think we can have fairness under law. I don't think the goal of our law should be equality. I think it should be fairness. And that's the difference between communism and Americanism, is they want equality. They want all of you to be equal and being discardable cogs in a machine that they can discard at any moment. Whereas what we want as Americans, as the last remaining branch of Americans, is fairness. We want women venerated in society. We want them elevated. I don't want women dying in battle. I don't. That's a thing for men. Like, let us die. Let us sacrifice for you. Let us love you, right? That, they say love is love. Well, they can't even define what a woman is, but I'll tell you what love is. Love is the willingness to sacrifice and eventually die for those that you care for. That is what love is. There is no, the author, Victor Hugo, right? He wrote Les Mis. He said, you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. That's a very powerful quote, right? And that's the reality. There is no love without sacrifice. There is no love without giving up something. And there are various degrees of that, but you're rejecting love. You're rejecting men being willing to lay down their life for your comfort, for your safety, and for your future. If you want to reject that, fine, but you got to be prepared to die in the muck and mud and all the things that go along with the patriarchy, because it's been a heavy burden for men. A lot of us have died in all these battles to keep you safe at night. There's a vast majority of police are men. Vast majority of people that are killed on the job are men. It's just so tiresome. Like, you have a blessed life. You're on a world tour. You're a billionaire, Taylor. Be a little bit grateful for the patriarchy that allowed you to do that, right? That gave you the permission to do that. We gave, when women wanted the right to vote, it was men that said, okay, you get the right to vote. When they wanted civil rights protections, okay, you got them. We give them whatever they want. And if they want to die in the mud, then they'll eventually get that. But that's not the future that I want for my daughters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Terry, thank you so much. I appreciate your thoughts today, and keep fighting for families and for these traditional values.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
I want to share with you an upcoming film that has core values like bravery, courage, individuality, hope, and a firm faith that the best is yet to come. It's called Horizon, an American Saga. Dive into the heart of the nation with Horizon, an American saga where faith, family, and freedom intertwine to ignite the patriotic flame. The film delves into the courage, resilience, and unyielding determination of America's pioneer spirit. Horizon, an American saga, highlights timeless values and cherished principles, serving as an inspiration and stirring tribute to the quintessential American ethos. Horizon is the story of how America became the country we love. It's the story of courageous men and women who sacrificed everything for their chance at the American dream. Hollywood legend Kevin Costner stars in and directs the epic tale of how the West was won. This 4th of July, make Horizon part of your celebration of this great nation. Don't miss Horizon, an American saga, Chapter 1 in theaters June 28th and Chapter 2 in theaters August 16th. Have you heard about the groundbreaking film hitting theaters nationwide this summer? Get ready for The Relentless Patriot. It's a captivating documentary by Global Ascension Studios, Hollywood's first ever conservative movie studio, headed by Joshua Macchiello. This isn't your average documentary. It's a powerful tribute to American patriotism and activism, following Scott Lobaido's remarkable journey from stirring flag renditions to outspoken advocacy for our service members. Scott's story is one of unwavering dedication and unfiltered passion. Join the movement for the special release of The Relentless Patriot. Experience Scott's journey, feel the pulse of American patriotism. Don't miss this unforgettable cinematic experience. Be part of history with The Relentless Patriot. Brought to you by Global Ascension Studios.
Well, that wraps up today's show. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to follow me on social media. I am at Danielle D'Souza Gill on all the platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, True Social, Rumble. I'm at Danielle D'Souza Gill, and that's where you can find me. I'll see you tomorrow, and MAGA.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.